welcome back to the channel, everybody. Thank you guys so much for tuning in on today's episode. I got a real treat for you guys today. Got quite a few updates on the Cummins, on the tow truck, and we also are going to be finishing up tearing down the race truck engine, pulling the cam out and everything, and the lifters as well. So let's jump right into it. Obviously, if you guys are new, make sure you guys are hitting that subscribe button so you aren't missing anything for the channel and the race truck and the tow truck and the 12 valve. So let's get right into it. I hope you guys enjoy this video. So the first thing I want to show you guys is actually on the tow truck here. We're gonna go outside here. I put some pretty cool stuff on it here. So I spent quite a bit of time detailing the interior of the tow truck. Should be all wiped down, looking good. And then we also installed the Weathertech floor mats. These Weathertech floor mats are freaking awesome. They are laser cut fit, so they, as you can see, I mean, it's solid, it's in there, it's not moving. We also got the rear version as well. Don't mind the select beer choice there. And last but not least, we also got the weather guards for the outside of the window, as you can see right there. Those weather guards are freaking awesome. They fit so nicely up into the window, so highly recommend those as well. Good pricing, good product. Highly recommend them, especially if you're going to be in the truck a lot. So the next thing, we're going to walk over to the Cummins here. You guys saw the pan underneath it. That is because the old 12 valve blew a fuel line. I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. So I'm on my way home from work and I'm watching my fuel gauge do this. It's just dropping very rapidly. So I can kind of smell fuel. I'm at a dead stop and I can kind of smell fuel, and so I'm like, oh, you know, I got a fuel leak coming from somewhere. So I eventually get it back to the house here and pop the hood, and it is absolutely just spraying fuel all over the place. If you look here, you can actually see everything is super clean now because of the fuel leak, as you can tell. But our fuel leak was actually coming from this line right here. This line right there is your main feed to the injection pump. You can see the banjo bolt right there that goes into the injection pump, and it comes off of the top of the fuel filter and goes into there. It is actually cracked right there. Not sure how, not sure when it got cracked, but that's where it was cracked. And I mean, I don't even know how the truck was still running with how bad this fuel leak was, but actually it cleaned up the engine pretty well. So we have something very cool ordered to have that line replaced. It's kind of a little bit of an upgrade, so that should be here hopefully soon within this week, and we'll get that taken care of. We also have something really cool sitting in the barn for this thing that we're going to be installing as well, so make sure you guys are subscribing so you can stay tuned on that. We're going to head back into the barn now. Alright, so here is where we left off with the engine. I highly recommend, I didn't mention this, is to spray WD-40 or some sort of lubricant on the block and the heads. That way they don't have a chance to rust, especially if your barn's not insulated and can't really keep the moisture from coming in. So highly recommend you guys do that. Head gasket here. We took our heads to the machine shop. Not the heads over there. I actually had another set that had already been checked for cracks. Those were good. Those were ready to go. They had new valve seals in them as well. So we took them up to the machine shop to get the O-ring machined in the head for the steel wire to sit into. I ordered 41,000 steel wire from SCE, I believe is what the company is. And ideally what I told the machinist is I want 0.008 protrusion, which is actually how far the wire sticks up from the flat surface of the head, and that part of that steel wire is going to be what's resting on the actual head gasket, and it forms a really tight and good sealing surface. So super pumped about that. Now that we got those dropped off, I'm going to let him do his thing over there, and we're going to get the heads back and make sure that our block is ready to go so that we can go ahead and put the heads on and get the studs in and torque those girls down. So I posted a picture of the heads on my Instagram. If you guys aren't following me on Instagram, make sure you head over there. I'll leave it my name down here somewhere, as well as in the comment, or as well as in the description below. You guys can go follow me over there. That way you can kind of see a sneak preview of what's to come on the channel and what you're expecting to see. So go over there, hit that follow button. So now that we've reached this point, we are going to go ahead and rip the cam out of this engine. So in order to do this, as I mentioned in my previous video, we have to get this hpop cover off and pull the hpop as well. But in order to do that, we have to get this IPR off, which there's a special tool because it's a massive size nut. So finally have the right size for that. So we're going to do that, and then you have to pull obviously the flywheel off. The rear cover comes off, and then there's a crossover tube that feeds oil to the top of the lifters in the back that we have to remove. Rip those lifters out, that way they don't fall down into the oil pan, and then we have to get the counterbalance weight off of the crankshaft. We're going to talk about that. They're also known as the no-no bolts. We're going to talk about those, and then we'll pull the cam out from the rear. So let's get started. Alright, so you guys just watched me pull the top of the hpop cover off. Like I said, you have to remove the IPR. So there's a special tool right here. It's got like a little slot in it, but that's what I use to pop that IPR valve out. And then there's just a handful of 8mm bolts around the edge, and then there's also a little bit of silicone at the corners here, so sometimes it can be a little bit difficult to get it to pop up and off. There's also a seal right here, so that can be kind of difficult to pop off, but once you get it off, everything's good to go there. This is the tube I'm talking about. This is what feeds. You can see the tube go around here to the front side of the lifters, and also to the other side back on this side. That's the crossover tube that we have to get off. The only way we can get that off is to go back with it, and that's why we have to remove the rear cover, but we have to do that anyways to get the cam out. So next thing I'm going to do is we're going to start getting this rear cover off using the flywheel first, get that all the way off, and then we'll be able to expose this whole backside. So let's get after it. So as you guys just saw, we pulled the rear engine cover off, along with the flex plate. We had one pesky little bolt, man, that thing did not want to come out. So we were able to get that out, pulled the rear engine cover off. These are the bolts I'm talking about. These are your no-no bolts, as you might read in the forums. They say that the crank and this balance counterweight, when the crank is machined, they machine these together, and so they're a pair, and blah, 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 blah. So they say you should never take that off, and then your crank will be imbalanced. So, but a lot of people do it anyways. You can pull these out to get the cam out, because this is your cam gear. So what Ford says to do is to drop your crank down out of the engine, pull all your oil pan and bed plate off and all that stuff, drop the crank down in order to be able to pull your cam out. Well, if you're like me, you don't have that ability to flip over the engine and do all that. And so we're just going to go ahead and pull these bolts. ARP makes a set of bolts for this rear piece here. We're going to pull these, make sure everything's in time. Obviously, we have this pin here, got the hole there, and then I believe there's another one up here. So then that's how you know whether it's in time. So I'll go over all of that as well. This is the crossover tube I'm talking about. That has to come out the rear here. We're going to peel these back, look down in here. We got to pull that little Allen, Torx off there, and on the other side, then this piece will be able to slide out this way, and then we'll pull our no-no bolts out. So real quick here too, guys, we're gonna go ahead and pull our hpop, and when we pull the hpop, that'll drain our oil cooler oil reservoir right there. That'll drain it. And then also real quick,
this is the old style STC fitting. This is very, very common to blow out, so we're going to update that, obviously. But what can actually happen is this quick connect fitting will blow out, and that'll send part of this into your rear cover, and then you'll end up cracking your rear cover. So this is actually really, really common, so we're going to obviously get that taken care of, as well as a handful of other updates. But we're going to go ahead and pull the hpop so we can drain that reservoir up top there, and then we'll keep moving. Alright, so you just watched me pull the hpop. Now let's talk about this real quick before we pull our no-no bolts out. This dowel pin lines up with a hole that's just behind here, and then it lines up with that hole. And there's also one more hole up top here, and that's how you know that this piece is in time. Now the cam is keyed, there's a key for it, so there's only one way this gear can go on. So when we swap our cam to the stage 2 cam, we'll be able to time this accordingly, and then we will also get our ARP bolts for this, so that we know that that is nice and secure and not going to be going anywhere. So let's pull this piece out first. Obviously we'll pull this out, and then we'll pull all of our lifters out front to back, that way they don't fall down into the oil pan. And then we'll pull our no-no bolts, and then we'll pull this cam gear and the whole cam out from the back. So let's get started by ripping these off first. Alright, so I finally got my adapter piece off of the back side of the crank here. It's very important to mark, you can see my mark right there, of where this needs to go for orientation. Some 6.0 cranks are drilled and there's a dowel, as you see right there, but as you can see on the front of mine, there is no dowel coming out of the crank. Therefore, we need to make sure that everything is lined up. But you can see the holes here. Let's get a good view of this. You can see the two holes at the crank and at the cam for timing. And you see how the holes are all the way up straight. So that's how you know everything is in time. So we're not going to be, obviously not going to be removing the crank, but the cam, when we put that back in the stage 2, we need to make sure that everything is timed correctly and that this adapter piece goes on exactly the same way that it just came off. So we got it all marked up. We should be good to go. Now for the cam, there are a handful of bolts on each side here that you have to remove, and then the cam will actually be able to slip straight out the back. So let's go ahead and remove those, and then we'll pull this sucker out. So there it is, fully removed. This is pretty much as far as we are going to go as far as tear down on this engine. Now we're actually going to go on the flip side and start going back together. This is your stock cam here. I'm going to kind of go across some of the differences in a later video of some of the differences between a stock cam and a stage 2 cam. You know, what are the benefits, you know, why would you upgrade the cam, especially, you know, well, for me, going with a higher horsepower engine. So I'll go over all of that. This is pretty straightforward. A really common failure point that I see with these 6.0 engines with high mileage, we're talking 200,000 miles plus, is I see lifter failure. And usually what happens is the roller bearing, let me show you guys. This roller bearing that you see right here that rides on the cam lobes, this over time will form a flat spot, usually from lack of oiling. This will actually get caught up and it won't be able to spin. And then you'll actually form a flat spot here and also under the cam. So that can cause catastrophic failure, because eventually what will happen is this lifter, once it forms a flat spot, it will eventually come apart, go down into your oil pan, and then take out your low pressure oil pump up front, causing a crank no start. That's why it's very important to make sure that you have low pressure oil before you have high pressure. So we're going to go ahead and we're pretty much replacing all of the valve train in this engine. We're going to be doing with a new cam, new lifters, push rods, valve springs. Everything in the valve train is going to be brand new. So we should be pretty solid there. We won't have any issues. Obviously, with a bigger cam, we are going to make sure that we have clearance. All of our clearances are correct, so, and in spec. So I'll go along, you know, and tell you guys how to do all of that, as well as swapping the cam over, because we actually have to press that gear off and then press the new that gear back onto the new cam. So I know some of you guys might mention, oh, you said it's going to drain. Yeah, well, that's if the engine is in the truck. Right now it's kind of front heavy, so it can't drain back and out. So I'm going to have to get this set up so that it drains the oil down into the pan. But we are pretty much as far as we can get for our teardown. At this point, we are going to pretty much be getting back together. Our next order of business, we're going to get our cam, we're going to get our new lifters, and pretty much this whole backside here is going to go back together first, and then we're going to start getting our heads back on once we get those back from the machine shop that are getting O-ringed. So
we got a ton of action coming for you guys over the next few episodes, as finally we are starting to move forward on the 6.0 engine and getting it back together now. We are on the flip side of things, so that is awesome. We got to order some parts for it, get some stuff coming in. I got a lot of parts in my room that need to be installed, but for the engine, we still need to order a handful of parts. One thing I want to mention, the race truck right there, the race truck, we are going to end up pulling the cab when the engine and transmission is all together. We're going to end up pulling the cab, painting the front side of the frame there, and dropping the cab and getting it running. So, because we're going to be pulling the cab, I have ordered a handful of parts for the front: new headlights, tail lights, roll pan, new grill. We're going to pretty much assemble the whole front side there. We're going to stick the intercooler back in, the radiator, Flexolite, electric fans are going to be going in as well. So that's going to be kind of what we're going to be doing in the meantime while we're waiting for parts for the engine to come in. Those parts are already ordered, so we're going to go ahead and do those next. So make sure you guys are staying tuned. Subscribe, hit the like button if you enjoyed this video, and as always, guys, please leave a comment down below. Let me know what you guys think. Give me your opinions. You know, anything you guys have in your mind, go ahead and leave a comment down below. And like I said before, if you guys are new, subscribe, because we got a lot of cool stuff coming your guys' way. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'll catch you guys on the next episode.